Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and welcome here today. I really want to make use of this opportunity to share with you, between myself and Prasheen, my co-presenter, we're not here to sell anything. We're really here to share our experiences, to share our learnings, and hopefully through our mistakes and hopefully through our realities, we can make a difference in your lives and in your company's lives. So without further ado, I wanted to ask a question to the team or to the group. Okay. Is a hole-in-one a luck or a skill? Luck? Yes. It helps, eh?
The more rounds I have, the better my chance.
The more rounds you have. The odds is increasing. Anyone else disagree with that?
The more you practice.
That's the thing. So the main thing about golf, and I think in business, in life in general, is the more I practice, the luckier I get. And I think that is what the theme is between myself and Prasheen. The more we've practiced, the more we've partaken in this journey of optimizing the business, making a difference in the business environment, the luckier we get, the more we understand where the pitfalls are and what to do and what not to do. So I want to start off with the whole concept of innovation, because in the end, we've listened to so many speakers, industry experts, and in the end, it all comes down to we need to be innovative. We need to look at ways to improve our efficiencies in the business. So for us, the winning formula around making it work in the organization is around you go through a process of consultation, and with this I'm not necessarily meaning hiring expensive consultants, but the consultation is around understanding the business and understanding the why. Then we get to the people component, the change management and the skills development. And I'm really, really thrilled. As much as we had supply chain many years ago started to be the latest terminology and the latest thing that people realize, and the maturity increase to that, change management is getting to that stage now. More and more organizations and people realize that if I'm not managing my change effectively, all my investment, whether it's artificial intelligence, the latest point of sale, the latest warehouse management solutions, it doesn't mean a thing if you don't manage your change and bring the people along with us. So for that point of view, the people side, the change and the skills development is fundamentally important, and that is what we want to share. So just in brief, if we talk about skills consultation, consultation is about organizations sitting back and decide, what do I want to do? Where should we go to? And starting off with, and we're talking from a supply chain perspective, starting off with your business strategy and determining what is needed, what do I want? From that, we assess and say, what do we really need? And what is the nice to haves in the business? So often we get organizations and companies that say, I want to do the artificial intelligence thing, or I want to implement this system. But we don't understand where it fits in the bigger picture. We don't understand where is this piece of software, this new practice that I want to implement, where does it fit into my business environment to make it better? So I'm really very specific about making sure we do the what we need and the why. What's the case for change? Why are we wanting to implement that? So that's really important in terms of the first dimension. The second dimension, obviously my passion in terms of change management. We need to talk to people and engage them, and please, change management is not communication. Okay? Don't think because I've communicated, people is going to do it. How many of you has got children where you tell them, don't touch the plug, or don't do this? Do they completely stop doing it? No. So communication in itself is not necessarily the determining factor. It is important, please understand me correctly. I'm not saying it's not important. It is really important, but you can't stop there. And for that, making sure we engage people's heads for them to understand why we're doing something, their hands, helping them to know what do they need to do, and their hearts in terms of, I want to do this. I see the value in this. I realize what's the consequences, positive or negative, if I actually do that. And if you don't engage all three of those elements, the change won't happen. So there is a change management framework, the SCOR model, and I quote it wherever I go because it's such a simplistic model in terms of summing all of this up. And it says the A for SCOR is our awareness. That's where we realize, well, what do we want, the understanding. The D is creating the desire. We need to talk to people's existence and their resistance level. The ability, that's where we kick in with the training, making sure people don't feel anxious about the new system, making sure that they actually feel comfortable with the new processes that we want to implement. And then the R is in terms of we need to reinforce, we need to follow up, and we need to make sure that there's sustainability. And lastly is really the skills development. This is where we need to grow our talent, but also not from a personal development point of view. Yes, it's from a systems or capability point of view, but we need to grow talent, not necessarily only the technical skills, also the emotional intelligence, also the soft skills of that. So, in terms of this journey we took with SanDock, Austral, and we get to the company now, what was really fundamental in the journey, and I think the small little ingredients of what was important, is the fact that we had passionate experts around. We really believe in what we do. We really wanting to make a difference, both from our client side, the SanDock Austral Group, and ourselves. We had the ability to look at it from a fresh eyes perspective. Fresh eyes in terms of using the SCOR reference model as an independent best practice, and I'm very passionate about it. I can't talk about supply chain if SCOR is not part of the equation somewhere. But I think the whole aspect, if you look at those ingredients, we've looked at the end-to-end value chain. We've looked at not only short-term but longer-term sustainability solution. We've looked at making sure it's practical, and Prasheen is going to elaborate on some of those aspects. On a high level, we've gone through a typical methodology where we've analyzed the business, we've looked at the strategy from a supply chain, defined the strategy, look at the conceptual model, the detailed design, implementation, and the monitor. So that's a high level, and it's nothing major. It is a typical continuous improvement philosophy. The difference here is how we went about in each of those aspects. And I think that is the magic ingredient. So just from a point of view, if we look at that methodology, it is and that's the magic of the SCOR model, what it gives us. It says you can go through analysis, strategy, and conceptual design, and we literally do that in 3 days with the right business representative. And to me, that commitment and that impact is fundamental. We don't expect people to sit there for months, take out so much time out of their business. Obviously, when you go into detailed design and implementation, it takes longer because that depends on the complexity of the change. But in essence, as we go through this methodology, all the aspects of why we're doing it, what the change is, and what's the reason for the change, and how are we enabling the people runs throughout that. For some background and some context, in terms of the journey Prasheen is going to share, I really want to point out for me the magic aspects of what helps us to be successful at what we do. And first of all, we started off with the first phase, we do a simulation. Now, every time I do that, I insist that we not only involve people from supply chain as we know it, we want people from finance, we want people from all the areas within the business, because supply chain thinking, even though we sit here and in our businesses we go back, not everyone understands supply chain the same. So this simulation is a fun way, but there's significant learnings that we always get from that. We also then identify the typical pain points. We look at the SCOR model, and yeah, the SCOR model is in the public domain. If you register on the ASM website, you get the login details, and most of you that use SAPICS members, you will have access to that. That body of knowledge is available. So that is what the critical factors are. The last point there is looking at the culture. If I implement something, it's got an effect or an impact on our organizational culture. So I'm not going to go through all the detail for each of these phases, but I think what's really important is this next phase is where we look at identifying the supply chain, and that's also an art. If you define it too finely or too broadly, we miss the point. So understanding that, defining whether my supply chain strategy is reliability, flexibility, cost, you can't have all of those, you need to make a choice. And then look at what's the 2B structure from a cultural point of view, and look at the gaps. The rest of the phases is basically identifying the gaps from a process point of view, per people point of view, and practices point of view. And then go back into the detailed design, org structure, job description, making sure that all of these things are integrated and integrated to it. In the end, we sit with a well-integrated tool where you can go on an org structure element, you click on that, you go to your performance contract for that role, you go to the job description for that role, you can go to the processes for that role. That's where the magic lies. And then when we get to implementation, the key point is bringing the people with, creating personal resilience, getting people and equipping people to deal with change in a constructive manner. That capability, although it's a soft skill, it's so important before embarking on a change that we actually do that. So, and then obviously we need to make sure people is accountable, put performance contracts in place, monitor that, and also in monitoring the people engagement level. How engaged are my people? How well has the solution been adopted? And look for your rectifying strategies from an ongoing perspective. I really went through very quickly through the methodology, but I think we all understand a lot of these kind of methodologies. But for me, it's the specific themes within the methodology that really makes it stand out. And so I wanted to talk to you about the SCOR version 14 that's coming out and at Douglas and Grant's session. They basically gave us in South Africa a sneak preview of the SCOR model and the release coming out. So for all of you, thanks for attending the session. We're going to have a launch date in October this year. If you use the code end-to-end SCOR and be in contact with us, we will make sure you get an invite to attend that session, and hopefully, Grant, we'll get the big man from SCOR from the US here to talk to us around it. So that is me. I really want you to see from a client's perspective, from the people that's been affected, and I've asked Prasheen to join me. It's such a privilege, Prasheen, to join me and share some of your experiences with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jolanda. Oh, Jesus. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think some of you may have a look at the people in the room will definitely know the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So this is a story I'm going to tell about how my life got turned upside down. And I'd like to take a minute, and you just sit right there, and I'm going to tell you about this transformation journey that I went through with Jolanda. So SanDock Austral Shipyards is part of the larger SanDock Austral group. So this is where we are now. Our vision is to build the African maritime legacy. We are the largest shipbuilding and ship repair company on the African continent. You get shipyards in Nigeria and Egypt, they've got a larger land space than us, but they don't actually work. That's the truth. And but the most important thing about the values, you will see it's underpinned by my personal belief in safety, perseverance, excellence, achievement, and reward. And that's encapsulated within the acronym SPEAR. Because I believe first and foremost, you must make people safe. They must have security of work and security of medical care and retirement and food and all of those things. Because once that security is not in place, you can't ask them to persevere because they're always worried. And if they're worried, they can't achieve excellence. And for me, that value system of SPEAR is very important. So this is where we are today, and I'm actually going to tell you how we got here. We have a couple of clusters or business units in terms of what we offer, products and services. We support the South African Navy and navies of other African countries in terms of either building their ships or repairing their ships. In fact, we're the only company in the country that has ever refitted a modern frigate. We still hold the record of building the largest ship ever built on the African continent to date. We build commercial ships and naval vessels. We repair Navy ships and commercial vessels for the offshore oil and gas industry as well. We are in the energy business, and we're in the defense business. Now, in September 2018, after a bruising 8-month shareholder battle, I ended up ousting my business partners with whom we've built a very, very toxic culture. For many reasons, I won't delve into why, but I inherited a toxic culture, and this resulted in... Someone's phone is ringing. And it resulted in me inheriting a company with low profitability. We were losing bids, bad culture, and not globally competitive. But I had to work with that, and I had to bury myself into implementing a 1.8 billion rand contract we had just won a few months earlier from the South African Navy. I was also emotionally drained after that shareholder battle, because there were many things said and done, including death threats against me and my family. So around October 2019, I got my mojo back, and I decided that I needed to put the company on a new growth path, on a new trajectory, to lessen our dependency on South African government work, become more globally competitive. And for those of you who know the property business, there are 3 rules about property. It's location, location, location. In shipbuilding and ship repair, there are also 3 rules. It's price, price, price. So if we don't get our pricing right, we're not going to compete. So in November 2019, I used a consultant, a friend of mine who I'd used 10 years previously, to facilitate a strategy formulation session. And after 2 days of workshop and 1 day of golf, we came up with a strategy and a semblance of an implementation plan. So this was the second time I'd played golf in my life. Now I'm hooked. And on the 25th of March, actually, I hit my first hole-in-one after, I think about 18 months of playing golf, much to the annoyance of my low handicap friends who have yet to achieve this feat after many decades of playing golf. But one of the key deliverables of our strategy was to develop a globally competitive supply chain using global sourcing. So using my trusted head of business intelligence, Mr. G.O. Ogle, I actually managed to find Jolanda and end-to-end supply chain solutions. Little did I realize that this engagement was going to fundamentally change my life. I thought I was going to get a person who was going to help me procure more competitively. What we ended up was with an entirely new operating model that made us not only globally competitive, but we ended up with a cooperative and collaborative operating model for which I'm a great fan of. You know, I believe in long-term business sustainability, not in short-term profit maximization. For me, that makes business sense. It's a smart thing to do, rather than a brutally competitive environment where the winner takes all. You know, and that's a very toxic kind of business environment to be. So I could have gone to one of the large consulting companies to help me on this journey, but when I met Jolanda in the middle of the 5-week hard lockdown we had in 2020 via Zoom, I knew she was the right strategic fit for me. I'm an entrepreneur, she's an entrepreneur. And she knew what our organization required, and she had the knowledge, the passion, the dedication, and commitment to see us through this transformation journey that we needed to embark on. So we began to apply her process that she's very nicely articulated in the first half of this presentation. It was lots of fun, not theoretical at all, very practical, with lots of team engagement. What I liked about it was that she threw the SCOR reference model on our table. It was that thick, and everyone came and got intimidated by this massive SCOR reference model. We hardly ever used it. She kind of just solicited people's practical answers, and suddenly, before you knew it, we were building a nice supply chain design and organizational design, and we had lots of fun. It was not fun, however, to see the results of our supply chain process maturity. We were far behind the curve, very far behind the curve. But Jolanda assured us that we can get where we needed to be. And it was going to be a steep uphill climb, but she assured us it's worth it. And as a typical entrepreneur, I was very impatient, and I put in very, very tight timelines for achievement. But one fundamental thing came out of this process for me. You know, as a conscious capitalist, I like to take a people-centered approach to business. And when we unpacked the supply chain, I understood the supply chain begins where we begin to extract, to harvest natural resources. And it ends with the consumer, the people who consume, whatever they consume. But you find in business today, this neoliberal business model that the world embraces, they like to get rid of people. The first thing people want to do is, when they want to cut costs, is cut the people cost. And for me, I say, if you rob people of the ability to consume, then it's not good for business. You got less consumers. And so it put into perspective, and I use the supply chain model to tell people that you should not be getting rid of people. You should be employing more people, because employing more people, putting money in consumers' pockets is actually very good for business. What you all are doing is actually going to slowly kill businesses. So we eventually came up with a brand new operating model, and what those guys are doing now, that is what we were doing during our operational workshops. So we had a very nice picture. There I am in the middle there with my team and that big ship, and everyone, every one of the business unit heads, they defined their vision and they took ownership of that vision, and they came up on their own. I didn't say anything. We were just sitting there as facilitators. But this was the beginning, and then we came up with a new organizational design. I had to choose people. Now, before I just had a head of shipbuilding and a head of ship repair. Now I had about 8 or 9 different business units, and I had to choose people. Now the head of the shipbuilding guy was there for 40 years. He is the South Africa's foremost shipbuilding expert, but he was 65 years old. I had to tell him he's not going to occupy any of those positions. Because why? We cannot expect a new result if we keep on doing the old things. And he, through the transformation process, was not buying into this. He would tell you what you want to do here. So, but also I couldn't lose him. So I gave him the ceremonial title of Deputy CEO. And his job is to mentor and guide, but leave the operations alone. I had to have some very difficult conversations with other senior managers and tell them why they're not getting a business unit head position, executive head, and rather a senior manager. But there were hard decisions, and I was scared to have those decisions. But anyway, we did it. But this was one of the most challenging periods I ever encountered as a business leader. Not then when we were doing that. It was when we started the implementation phase. The amount of resistance to change we encountered was unbelievable. People had built empires within the organization. People had created silos within the organization. People were so used to doing things over the last 20, 30, 40 years, they didn't want to change. And no matter how much we told them that our old operating model did not yield good results, so let's try something new, there was massive resistance to change. If you look at this slide, how the way we really get things done and the way we get things done, it's diametrically opposed. And they didn't want to become Elvis. The iceberg, I think most of you, somewhere in your strategy building sessions, in your change management sessions, have come across this picture. For me, you get the promoters, and there were quite a few of them. Then there were potential promoters. Once they got educated, they knew about it. Then the opponents, very few of them, and they made themselves known. But the hidden opponents, for me, are the most dangerous people in any organization. I always say there are things that you know, the things that you don't know, and the things that you don't know that you don't know. And that's where you hit. And those are the things, we call it ignorance or ignorance bliss. And those are the kind of people you really need to watch out for, and they made this journey for me very, very, very difficult. So, and that's why I said it was one of the most challenging times of our life. During the implementation phase, we had another workshop. We had a series of workshops. So on a hot, balmy day in the Durban Country Club, we did not play golf, by the way. We just went there for the workshop. The air cons were not working, and you'll know the humidity in Durban. And my wife told me never to tell this, but I'm going to say it. People were frustrating the implementation process. So Jolanda had a team presenting, and finally she could take no more. And I see how lovely hair she got. This hair was in a chomors. She was at her wit's end. I saw she was about to give up, right? Because certain people were not coming along. And you know, it only takes one rotten apple to spoil the whole basket, eh? And they were not coming along with the model. And she went there and kind of told them off and read them their obituary. Yeah. And very quickly thereafter, they came along. So we decided to persevere. We had enough of a critical mass after that to begin to roll out the new operating model to every single staff member. And I'm going to say every single staff member, down to the cleaner, right up to the executives. Every single. So all the newly appointed business unit heads had to tell the entire workforce about their new role, their new vision in terms of the new role and the new operating model and their contribution to it. And I had to give a global overview. It was rolled out over 4 days for 470 employees in small groups of a maximum of 20 people due to COVID restrictions. I repeated my presentation more than 25 times over those 4 days. I don't think I was so exhausted in my entire life. But people were excited. People were excited. It gave them hope that we could build a sustainable business. And if we build a sustainable business, it gave them security of employment. And and that's what we need as leaders to inculcate within our people, hope. It was Nelson Mandela that said, hope is life itself. So, embarking on this journey, as I said, was a very hard thing. We had to do it against COVID background. We had to do it with rioting and looting in KwaZulu-Natal. We had to now do it with the recent floods. My shipyard was closed for 9 weeks, by the way. We opened 2 weeks ago. 9 weeks. It was a devastation. Somehow the gods are not happy with people in KwaZulu-Natal. And it was very hard. But we got there. So what we did, when we developed our operating models, when we developed our strategy and our goals, we then told people, okay, so these are your strategies, these are the goals, we all agreed, you agreed it. Now go and write up your own performance management contracts. We turned it upside down. We didn't say, this is what you shall achieve. Some people took a chance and wrote 2 things down. But we managed to, through Jolanda, through coaching and so forth, make them understand. But the good thing is, when people tell you what they're going to achieve, because we all agreed initially what we're supposed to achieve, it makes it very easy for them to commit. Because I can't say, you didn't achieve. I say, but you told me you're going to do this, why didn't you do it? It's a different narrative, it's a different kind of conversation. And that's the kind of support I got from Jolanda in terms of, creating a high impact organization and for the achievement of goals. So we spoke about all was not plain sailing, and that a steep transformation journey became even steeper because of the KZN floods, the looting, corruption. Currently I got with one state-owned enterprises 1.1 billion rand of court cases because of corruption. And it becomes hard as South African entrepreneurs so you build world-class excellent models, but it's hard to achieve them because of the state of corruption in this country. So this is not the end of the journey. We've just started. This is the beginning of the journey. But one of our major successes is that it gave us the courage now to go globally. We've got a globally competitive model. We can cooperate, we can collaborate with the best in the world. So we bid for a project in Malaysia, a very advanced economy that wanted to build 4 patrol vessels for the military, for the Navy. We started off as one of 40 bidders. To our surprise and shock, we were down to one of 10. To our further surprise, in the next round, we're down to 5. And now we're in the final stages of the top 3 contenders against Germany and Holland, South Africa. Now, the Malaysians thereafter were so impressed with us because our price was good. The Coast Guard needed 3 vessels. And they said, we looked at what you're doing. We looked at your model. And on a single source basis, they're now discussing to place an order for 3 Coast Guard vessels for the Malaysian Maritime Monitoring Authority on a single source basis. And that's a level of confidence. And the reason why they got the level of confidence in us is because they had confidence that we could deliver when we unpacked this operating model, this cooperative, collaborative operating model that brought the best subcontractors, suppliers, and other partners in the world. Our model now, we're dealing with Canada for design, Italy for mission systems, Germany for engines, the best of class in the world, and we just put it all together because that is how we've created the model. We call ourselves now primary systems integrators. And let me tell you what the model is worth. I put a value of 9 billion rand to this model. How come? We all know Denel, the state-owned arms manufacturer. Denel had 2 contracts, one with Egypt and one with Oman, collectively worth 30 billion rand. Denel could not raise 9 billion rand of guarantees. They came to us and said, can you help? We said, yes, we will try. We went to our bankers and reinsurers and explained, I'm not going to tell you what the projects were because they're military top secret, and explained these 2 projects. And out of London and the Middle East, we got the 9 billion of guarantees because they believed that using our operating model and using suppliers out of South Africa, using Denel with the experience that we could execute. But once again, we refused to pay anyone a kickback, so that project never happened. But we raised 9 billion. Had Denel and the government accepted the 9 billion of guarantees, today Denel would not be a failed company. It would have had a 30 billion rand order book. So from where we started, in the blue, we are now in the red. Substantial improvements in our maturity assessment. And for me, I was so chuffed with where we had come. And this was done, I think, Jolanda, within 18 months. 18 months. We made leaps. We're far from being a 5. I think only the Fords and the Toyotas and stuff are 5. So we've made substantial progress in it. And if we go over some of the key savings, in terms of contract renegotiations, we saved 23%. We established strategic supplier partnerships and collaboration. We lowered inventory levels. We decreased it by 15%. The warehouse, that was the biggest win for me. We had stuff there from 1975. I promise you, I was born in that year. We had stuff there, and we began to clean out and create space and really optimize the warehouse. The staff morale just improved because you had a cleaner environment. Overall productivity increased by 17%. I can go on. But at the end of the day, with the money we spent to Jolanda paying her for the work she did as a consultant and a partner, we achieved a return of 239%, and I'm very happy with that. Lastly, I was studying, and I wrote up this case study for my dissertation with the London Graduate School of Business. And It was a very vigorous process, but we managed to get a distinction. And it was, in my research, I tried to find shipbuilding and ship repair companies that use SCOR, and you couldn't. So not only did I get this distinction, but we set a whole new benchmark for the global shipbuilding and ship repair industry. So this has been a fantastic partnership. You know, I didn't go into technical details, but I really wanted to speak as an entrepreneur that embracing the supply chain methodology, embracing the SCOR model, we are able to create internationally competitive manufacturing industries in South Africa. And I believe if more companies adopt it, I think we can turn this economy around. Thank you very much.